like to turn to Jeremiah chapter 9, also Psalm 37 and Psalm 73. Jeremiah 9, we'll read verses 23 and 24. Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches. But let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord. Psalm 37, verse 4. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Psalm 73, verse 25. Whom have I in heaven but thee? There is none upon earth that I desire beside thee. In the text in Jeremiah, God is speaking, and he speaks of those that knoweth me. And from what we read there, it's a great blessing to know God, greater than worldly intellect, greater than power, greater than position, greater than wealth. The two texts in Psalms, Psalm 37, written by David, Psalm 73, written by Asaph. So written by different men from different angles. Psalm 37 is instructional, and Psalm 73 is more of a testimonial. Yet both are written under similar circumstances: the prosperity of the wicked, the suffering of the saints. And they both share a common theme: delight and desire relating to the Lord. So putting these three verses together, the themes are knowing God, delighting in God, and desiring God. That's a wonderful life. Knowing God, delighting in God, desiring God. Our subject is knowledge, delight, desire. We're going to look at each one of those. So we'll begin by looking at a knowledge of God. The fact is, God can be known by man. That's amazing. That's an amazing thing. God is not some abstraction, not a mere philosophical concept. He is a living, personal God, and He reveals Himself to man. And He can not only be known by man, but man can live in the experience of God. Now in our text in Jeremiah, understanding, in verse 24, and knowledge are connected. To understand is to possess insight. It's to comprehend. It's to grasp. To know can be simply to be aware of, to be familiar with the reality of something. So really, understanding is a higher degree of knowledge. Again, God can be known by us. We read in John 17:3, and this is life eternal, that they may know Thee, that they may know Thee. That's not just knowing about God, that they may know Thee. And in 1 John 4, verse 6, we read the words, He that knoweth, present tense, ongoing, continually, he that knoweth God. And then in 1 John 5:20, that we may know Him, that is true. So God can be known by man. We read in Psalm 9 and verse 10, They that know Thy name. Now His name is who He is. They that know Thy name. Daniel 11 verse 32, the people that do know their God. So what kind of knowledge is this? Again, it's more than just knowing about God, knowing some facts about God. It is a knowledge of confidence. It is a knowledge that breeds confidence. It is a knowledge that produces assurance, unwavering certainty concerning His greatness, His vastness, His majesty, His glory, His power, His wisdom, His love, His mercy, His care. Knowing that He is our helper, knowing that He is our fortress and refuge. It is a knowledge of relationship. It is an association with God. Personal contact with God. Personal closeness, personal fellowship with God. It is agreement with God. Again, this is more than having information about God. This is more than knowing the theology of God. It is a knowledge that does not leave you detached from God. You can know about God and be detached from God. You can know many, many truths. You can know the attributes of God and be detached from Him. So that's not the knowledge we're talking about. We're talking about a knowledge that does not leave one detached from God, does not leave one indifferent toward God, but rather it is a knowledge that has a powerful impact upon one's life and how that individual's life is lived. Again, in Psalm 9, verse 10, we read, They that know Thy name will put. Now, the word put speaks of something deliberate. You don't put something in a place by accident. That's deliberate. So, they that know Thy name will put there, that's personal, trust, confidence in Thee. So, how much we trust God depends on how well we know God. Depends on our relationship with the Lord. People do it backwards all the time and it never works. Well, I realize I need to trust God more and I'm going to start trying to do that. Well, don't bother. You need to know Him more. And if you know Him better, you'll trust Him more. You got it. It's the relationship thing. You can't just working on trusting God more because it's connected to a relationship. So our level of trust in God speaks of our level of knowledge and understanding of God. In Daniel 11:32, drawing a contrast with those who do wickedly, it is, But the people that do know their God shall. The people that know their God shall. So this knowledge has an effect upon them, and it says, shall be strong. So this knowledge of God has an effect upon their state of being. They shall be strong. And then it says, and do. So now it has an effect upon their activity. It has the knowledge of God has an effect upon their being and their activity. They shall do exploits. Notice again what Jesus said to the woman at the well. John 4:10. If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith unto thee, Thou wouldest have. If you truly knew, you would have. I use that verse all the time when people, usually speaking of the children, well, they know the truth. Well, if they did, they would do this. They may know of the truth. And they may know of God. But there's not a relationship, because if there was, they would have. They would do. They would be. They would do. So this is a knowledge that has a powerful effect upon our lives. And it is the failure to know God in this way that results in trivial worship of God. It's that which results in shallow and irreverent worship of the Lord. It is a failure to know God in this way. It is a failure to know God that results in service of God being mundane, and you have to almost plead with people to serve. If they knew God, they would serve. If they knew Him in this relationship way. It is declared in Hosea 4 verse 6, My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And it's not just a knowledge about God, but it's this relationship knowledge. Notice it's not my people are destroyed for a lack of education. They are destroyed because they lack intellectualism or a certain position or a certain status or things. Lack of knowledge. A failure to know God. We can't be deceived. Insight and confidence and assurance and persuasion concerning who God is and the ways of God is far, far, far more useful, far more helpful and beneficial and productive than education, than intellectualism, than position, than status, than things. This is so to each one of us personally. This is so concerning circumstances. This is so concerning our influence. This is so concerning being a blessing to the church of which we are a member. And we read in Hosea 6:3, Then shall we know if we follow on to know the Lord. How many people are striving, God's people, to know the Lord? Then shall we know if we follow on to know the Lord. That's the key. Knowing Him. Notice in Exodus 16, with regard to God providing manna, He says, Ye shall be filled with bread, and ye shall know that. You shall know something specific. I am the Lord, your God. What is the key? What is the most important thing in that verse? Is it the manna being rained down from heaven? No. That's a great blessing. But it's to know that I am the Lord, your God. So we have to know God in a relationship way. Understandeth and knoweth. Jeremiah 9 again, verse 24. It's continual, it's growing. And that brings us to delight and desire. But it's this knowledge of God that is foundational. In Psalm 37:4, there's this exhortation. Delight thyself also in the Lord. That's a command. We're exhorted to do it. Try doing that without knowing Him in a relationship way. You can't. And then it goes on to, there's a promise. And He shall give thee the desires of thine heart. So we have delight and we have desires. The person who delights in the Lord, what are the desires of their heart? The Lord. Everything's connected to the Lord. It's not delight thyself in the Lord and the Lord will give thee the desires contrary to Him. No, you don't desire those things because your delight is in the Lord. So delight and desire are connected. They can't be contrary. The words delight, two words, delight and desire. And then in Psalm 73:25, we have the same two. There is the expression of delight. Whom have I in heaven but thee? That's an expression of delight. And then, there is none upon earth that I desire beside thee. Delight and desire, the two are connected. In other words, what we delight in, we desire. What we delight in is what we enjoy. And what we enjoy, we desire. I don't desire anything that's unenjoyable. I don't desire that. I don't pursue that. You deal with it if it comes your way, but you don't go looking for it. You don't pursue it. We delight in what we delight in, we will desire. And these delight and desire are not separate from an ongoing personal knowledge of God. The more personal our knowledge of God, the greater our delight in God. And the greater our desire for God. So, again, people do things backwards, and it doesn't work, never does. We've got a real problem. People just don't desire the Lord. Well, why is that? Well, we have to present it differently. No, that's not the problem. The problem is they don't delight in God. They don't enjoy God. They don't enjoy church. That's why they're not here. Otherwise they'd be here. They don't delight in God. Therefore, they're not in search of God. They do not desire God. The two go together. So let's consider delight in God. What is it? Well, it's to rejoice in who and what God is. It is to enjoy who and what God is. It is to find pleasure in the person and character of God. Now, having said that, an individual can take a book about God. And they may enjoy that book. They may enjoy what it teaches. But that's not the question. Do they enjoy God? Because you can enjoy the things about Him without enjoying Him. It's gladness. It's satisfaction. What you desire in makes you glad, or what you delight in makes you glad. It satisfies you. It gives you, it can be refreshing. It can be fulfilling. Delight in God is to find gladness in the person of God, in a relationship with God. It's to be pleased with the Lord. There are a lot of God's people who are not pleased with the Lord. God doesn't give them pleasure. They're not pleased with Him. That says something. That says something terrible about their condition. We are to enjoy God. Delight thyself in the Lord. That is, live life enjoying God. How many do that? Not merely enjoying things about God, We are to be students of the character of God, always learning by personal study and experience, increasing in our knowledge of God, but that is also true of our enjoyment of God. The more we truly know Him, the more we enjoy Him. And then we delight. That's delight in God. So enjoyment of God. Knowing God, enjoying God go together. It's a life of gladness, pleasure, joy, satisfaction, fulfillment. And again, this increases as our personal relationship increases. Our life should consist of follow on to know the Lord. And it will if we delight in Him. If we delight in Him. If we find pleasure. If we enjoy God. Again, it is a delight of priority. Again, Asaph in Psalm 73:25, whom have I in heaven but Thee? That's a delight of priority. He is saying, who else but You? Who else but You, God? This is a feeling, it's an emotion, it's an affection for God. It's a personal experience of God. It is the heart being fixed upon God. It is the heart taken up with God. It is a heart for God. It is a heart gripped by God. It is a heart moved by God. And sensitive to God. And all of this increases as personal knowledge of God deepens. Again, enjoy God. We can, and we do, enjoy God's promises that are given to us for our comfort and encouragement. But never confuse enjoying the promises of God with enjoying God. You can enjoy the promises without enjoying Him. Everyone has a favorite verse. And you enjoy that verse for many reasons. But you can enjoy a verse without enjoying God. So delight thyself in the Lord. Psalm 37:4, delight thyself in the Lord. No conditions are set. No particular circumstances are mentioned. It is simply enjoy God. Enjoy God. No matter what. Times of sorrow, enjoy God. That's what Paul is saying. That we're to always rejoice. We're to always enjoy God. Always enjoy God. Never leave God out of the picture. Enjoy God. And it's a result of knowing God in a personal relationship way. David said in Psalm 16:11, in Thy presence is, ongoing, fullness of joy. There's an enjoyment. There's an enjoyment of God. Again, you can know of God and not enjoy God. There are a lot of people that I know don't particularly enjoy being with them. Don't enjoy their presence. We need to enjoy God. Enjoy God. In Thy presence is fullness of joy. We must know Him. And we must assess Him to be the most important. And this is what Asaph is expressing in Psalm 73:25, whom have I in heaven but Thee? Enjoyment of God. You enjoy God, you'll enjoy serving Him. If a person does not enjoy serving God, it's because they're doing it wrong. And they have a wrong and the reason they're doing it wrong is because they have a wrong perspective of God. Enjoy God, and you'll enjoy serving God. If you enjoy God, that'll keep you from on again, off again. All the time. You just never know which way they're going to go. If you enjoy God, that's not going to happen. Enjoy God will not allow the busyness of life to push God aside. One thing I have learned very well in the ministry is people do what they want to do. And that is true. And people do what they desire to do. And when someone chooses to do something out in the world rather than attend church, whether they realize it or not, and no matter how much they deny it, they enjoy that more than they enjoy church, because it came down to a choice, and that's what they chose. You give me a choice between what I enjoy and something else, I'm going to take what I enjoy. It'll keep us from enjoyment of God, or keep you from nibbling at the world's table. Many of God's people, that's what they do. They just nibble. Keep us from adopting the values of the world and the priorities and the lifestyles of the world. Enjoyment of God will fill our life with meaning. But there aren't many, when you break it down, that truly enjoy God. And why is that? Well, if He was presented in a different way, maybe they would. No, it wouldn't matter how you presented Him. It's because of a lack of knowledge. It's because they lack this personal relationship with God. This leads to a desire for God. Desire is our inclination, what we are inclined to do. It is our yearning, our longing, our passion, our determination, the impulse of our life. In light of that, we hear Asaph say, "There is none upon earth that I desire beside thee." The object of his desire is God. God Himself. You can even desire to be in church. You can delight in church services. You can desire to be there without delighting and desiring in God. We have to always check. Is it God that I'm enjoying? Is it God that I'm enjoying? The enjoyment of God. Asaph simply wanted God. That's desire. And it's founded in delight. And they both go back to knowledge. Delight in God results in a soul hunger and a thirst for God. So we need to ask ourselves, do we aspire for God? I didn't ask, do we aspire for the things of God? That's not the question. Do we aspire for God? Do we yearn and long for God? Is God the determination? Is God the impulse of our life? If not, why? Why is that? Well, people would come up with all kinds of reasons. But none of them are so. But there would be no shortage of reasons. But there's one reason. It's due to a failure in relationship with God, which in turn results in a lack of enjoyment of God, which leads to a lack of desire for God. Now, this desire for God is inclusive of a desire for His will in our lives, a desire for His rule and control in our lives. There is a desire for His honor and for His glory, a desire to obey Him. But again, we'll stop there. You obey God. You do what God says. Next question is, did you enjoy God doing it? Because we should. We should enjoy God in our obedience. This desire for God includes a desire to worship Him, to praise Him, to thank Him. You got to be careful again. We thank the Lord. Where's the emphasis? On what He did or who He is? Makes a big difference. It's connected with loving God, being near to God. Why is it that so many of God's people, it scares them to be near to God? It really does. Well, if you had a personal relationship with God, there would be no fear in that. The fellowship with Him includes a desire for our lives to be intertwined and weaved to Him. If we enjoy God, and if we desire God, we want our lives more intertwined with Him and completely surrendered to Him. Again, this desire for God is in proportion to our delight in God. How strong is our desire for God? How much do we want God in our lives? Well, that's dependent upon how much we enjoy God. And our enjoyment of God is dependent upon how well we know Him in a relationship. These things go together. And you can't fix one. If there's a problem, you can't fix one without the other. You can't just choose one and work on that. You got to go back to the foundation, which is a personal relationship with God. So, knowledge, delight, desire. We need a knowledge, personal knowledge, relationship knowledge of God, which leads to a desire or a delight and enjoyment of God. And that enjoyment just grows and grows and grows, and that feeds a desire for God. So if you ever feel that your desire is beginning to die, you need to get back to a relationship with God. That's where you need to get back to. And that'll fix it. And nothing else will. Nothing else will. We need to always keep those things straight, because God's people all the time are working on the wrong thing. All the time. Well, I realize that I don't pray enough, so I'm going to work on that. Well, that's really not what you need to work on. You need to work on what's going to lead to that. Praying more. And again, it gets back to a relationship with God. You see, and as you work on all these things without this relationship, they don't work. Never have and never will. They just don't work. You can't fix it that way. Put a Band-Aid on it, but it doesn't fix it. It all gets back to this knowledge of God. Oh, how important that we have this personal relationship with God. Brother Dave, if you'd come and lead us in